Welcome to this video series about improvising by Sietze de Vries. You can support this video series by donating the amount of your choice to Sietze de Vries' Patreon account, which can be found by searching Sietze de Vries Patreon or by finding the link in the description below the video. Enjoy the video.
So we arrived at variation number 8 of Pachelbel, partita number 8, and it's a kind of different animal this time because the melody is now in the bass. And actually Pachelbel suggests you can play it in the pedal actually. So let's first listen what he does here exactly. It's a very beautiful way of making variations with a very profound bass. I have a 16-foot in the pedal now and 8/4/2 in the manual. But of course we have to think about it, how to make this variation, because having the melody in the pedal, in the bass actually, that means you need a different kind of harmonization. I can't use the normal 1-4-5 system anymore, because it's not only bass notes in the pedal, it's the actual melody. And in essence that means that you need to have a triad that fits on the melody. So if I make it as simple as possible, the main thing that you actually do is just play the triad on top of the melody note. So if I play it in the most simple way, what I do, I play it with my left hand now, the melody, and you just place a triad with the right hand. And of course that sounds horrible because I'm making parallels all the time, but of course I can invert triads in a way that if the melody goes up, my triad goes down. So then I can do something like this. And that way I always have a good sound on my melody note in the bass. Of course it doesn't always work. There are some notes that you can't really fit in the normal triad. So let's go to our melody that we use for our variations, the old 100th. And if I look at the second note, so it starts of course with a G. But then we have an F sharp in the melody, and I can't do this. That doesn't sound too good, so let's use an inversion there. So instead of having the F sharp as the bass of the chord, I use it as the third, so first inversion. That means I start with a normal triad of G. And then I use the 5, the D major chord with the F sharp as the bass note. But you try to avoid as much as possible to have inversions, because then the bass line is kind of hanging in the air. It's not really a bass line anymore. So if I would use the normal 1-4-5 system and having the melody in the bass, you end up with very uninteresting sounding chords, like and then the chords don't have any support. Like I said, it's hanging in the air. So you need to have as much root position as you can manage, and only the notes that really don't work, or repeating notes, or just to have some variation, you can use inversions. But you do use inversions in the right hand to make sure that the triad goes against the melody. So let me play the whole melody of the old 100th. Left hand plays the melody in the bass, and the right hand is playing triads, but when the melody goes up, I make sure that my inversions go down. So you get a harmonization like this. And of course then you can play it in the pedal and you try to use the same chords in the manual. And as you noticed, I used a few ornaments, some passing notes to make it not only chords, very vertical, but to go more in a horizontal direction. And the trick that Pachelbel actually uses is he leaves out one voice, so we only have the bass line, the melody, and two voices in the right hand, and he actually plays them as broken chords, so not together, but always one at a time and the other one is added, like this. So you get a very lively sound. So we can try that with our psalm as well. But of course, first you play the triad so that you know exactly what goes on harmonically. And you noticed I used root positions all the time except for the F sharp, where it is basically impossible. And of course later you can use more inversions now and again. When you use more passing notes, more ornaments, you will end up with some chords that are not always in root position, but it is a good way to practice, to really get it down that you know what are the best chords on a bass line. Because actually what we are doing now is playing basso continuo. That's what they all did in Bach's time. They always had only a bass line and then you can accompany anything, because on the bass line you know what kind of chords you can put. And of course when it was only a bass line and nothing added, it was root position, and when you had some numbers going on top of the bass line, you knew, okay, I need an inversion or I need a different kind of chord. And that's what figured bass is, what basso continuo is. Okay, let's try if we can do it in the style of Pachelbel. So I will do the same trick. I will play the melody in the pedal. I only leave two voices here and I will just play around with it a little bit. Of course, this is the part where creativity kicks in again. So in my head is basically still root position chords, but I just play around with it. And then you can end up with something like this. And if you find it hard to go directly into this type of variation, you can always have one step in between, and then you can make a three-part harmony on top of the bass note, something like this. And of course this type of variation is actually beautiful to do in a big sound, and then to have an impressive deep pedal note, and then you can actually make a very impressive variation, for example at the end of a partita. And then you use big chords, of course. You can double whatever you want in the triad. As long as it's the right triad on top of the bass note, you can do anything. So you can make a variation like this.